Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2012 horror drama with some thriller elements, American Mary. Now this is a request from Darren Morquant. I don't know if I said his last name correctly. He requested this a long time ago. I apologize for taking so long to get to this, but that's the whole thing I'm doing right now. I am starting this series of reviews right now where I'm going back and reviewing some of the stuff that people requested me to review a long time ago, or stuff that people sent me. That's kind of, just wanted to kind of do that because I honestly felt that I kind of, let that slide a little bit too long, and I apologize. But anyway, here we go with this sort of request, series, and we go with American Mary, which I was leery about because I'm not really a fan of the torture porn genre. That's kind of what it kind of sounded like it might be, but really, I was very pleasantly surprised by this film. I actually liked it. It has a very excellent, great performance by Kathartine Isabelle as Mary. She's very charismatic, femme fatale in this, and she's drop dead gorgeous as usual. I honestly, ever since I saw Ginger Snaps, I've always had a thing for Kathartine Isabelle, and this is definitely, probably without a doubt, the best performance I've seen her do in a film. She's she's the best thing about the movie, easily. I mean, the direction by the Soska sisters is pretty solid as well, and it's got an interesting plot going on. I think the main thing that kind of holds the film back for me for being like a perfect movie, a 10 out of 10, a 5-star flick, is that there are some things that are kind of unfocused and stuff that feels a little bit rushed with the story, and I'll get to that later. But anyway, American Mary is a film that I gotta be honest, it's not really. You're expecting something like Hostel or August Underground. That's not really what American Mary is. American Mary is more like Henry the Portrait of a Serial Killer meets Audition. So if that kind of thing interests you, then I actually do recommend this film. And I'm kind of starting out this sort of review in a sort of non-spoiler way, giving you guys my thoughts on it, things about it that I liked. I mean, and then going into spoilers because honestly, if you haven't seen it and it looks interesting and you're kind of curious about it, I don't want to spoil it for you. So, yeah, well, the short of it, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a very captivating, bizarrely intriguing horror drama with thriller elements, with a great performance by Kathartine Isabelle. And it's kind of definitely deals with body horror. So, I think honestly, David Cronenberg would be proud of the Suska sisters' job here in American Mary. And it's not as gory or as bloody as I thought it was going to be, but there is some blood and there's some intense stuff going on. But it's got a dark sense of humor that I do enjoy. And yeah, and it's got a lead who you definitely do sympathize with. She's kind of given a raw deal in the beginning. She's very talented, and then stuff just starts to go awry in her life. She gets involved with this underground group of body modification people and underground surgery, and she first starts doing that just to pay the bills, and then things get really crazy because there's a really devastating moment that happens in her life that starts to send her spiraling out of control. Not only with her whole surgery, sort of underground surgery jobs, but with her sanity as well. So, and ultimately, it does not end well for her. But that's to be expected. But anyway, yeah, that's just kind of a rundown there of American Mary. If you are a fan of body modification, piercings, the kind of stuff that the body mod community does, or if you're a fan of Kathartine Isabelle, or it sounds interesting, I do honestly, absolutely do uh, recommend you check it out. And I know I've been repeating myself here, but I really do. I think this is definitely a gem, if you ask me. So now that's just my non-spoiler part of the review. Now we're gonna get into spoilers. We're gonna go a little bit in depth here. It's directed, of course, it's directed by the Soska sisters, Jen and Sylvia Soska. I don't know, maybe I said their names wrong. It's the Soska sisters. Damn it. Fuck it. You know, Suska, Soska. You know, I got confused with Suska Pictures. They also helped write it. They actually also not helped. They did write it. They wrote the film as well, and it stars Kathartine Isabelle as Mary Mason, who is a medical school student and aspiring surgeon, who, out of desperation, like I was saying earlier, starts to perform extreme body modification surgeries to solve her financial issues. Antonia Cupo plays Billy Barker, the owner of a strip club, where Mary applies for a job at. This guy, he looks like Eli Roth. So, you know, it's if Eli Roth owned a bar, that's Antonia Cupo. Tristan Risk plays Beatrice Johnson, who's a stripper who has had herself surgically altered to resemble Betty Boop. Very creepy, weird character. Good performance by Tristan. David Lovgren plays Dr. Alan Grant, who is one of Mary's professors at the medical school. No relation to Dr. Alan Grant from Jurassic Park. He's a total scumbag. And Puala Lindberg plays Ruby Real Girl, who's a fashion designer who wishes to become a human doll. There's a lot of disturbing, strange, surreal things in this movie, but that's part of its appeal. It's part of what makes it stand out so much. You even have the Soska sisters themselves who play these two twins who show up. I believe it's them. I could be wrong. Uh, but yeah, there's these two twins who are really into body mod and stuff like that, and they specifically ask Mary for for her help. So they ask her to do a job for them. Features music by Peter Allen. That's one. The score is there's really kind of forgettable. The score, there's not much to it. It has some moments, but eh. Honestly, the songs in the soundtrack I thought were better than the score, especially the song that's plays in the party scene with all the different surgeons and the crazy weird guy who's all like, "I'm a fucking motherfucker." Uh, these surgeons are fucked up. They're saying things like, "Yeah, welcome to the slashers. You know, are you ready to be a slasher?" You says the whole thing. He calls it, the other surgeons call themselves slashers, which is kind of fucked up. But if you think about it, a person who pretty much cuts into human beings for a living probably has, maybe they're not completely 100% normal. But anyway, what is normal anyway? I mean, normal, it depends on your point of view. Normal is up to, it's a subjective thing. It's up to interpretation on what normal is or isn't. But anyway, the film, it begins with the protagonist, with Mary Mason, who does surgery on a turkey, and very stylish, slick direction. I wanted to throw that out there. These two sisters, I know, I've heard of some other films they've done, but I've heard they're pretty shitty. Like, I think they directed the See No Evil sequel. This is a very stylish, slick directed film. The direction is definitely a very good element here in American Mary, and definitely a high point. So she's a medical student. She's preparing to become a surgeon. She's very talented. She's good with her hands. She struggles to pay her bills, and so she applies for work at a strip club. Before the job interview ends, she's taken to an underground room by the club's owner, Billy Barker, played by Antonia Cupo, and she's presented with a man who's been tortured. Like, his face has been cut open, he's missing an eye, and she's asked to save this tortured man's life for $5,000. She does so, but that really does affect her. She returns home in panic and disgust. She actually vomits. I don't think she vomits yet, but she's just really panicked. Several days later, she's approached by Beatrice Johnson, who's the Betty Boop lookalike, who's a stripper at the club where Mary applied for a job at. Beatrice has herself surgically altered to resemble Betty Boop, like I was saying earlier. She offers Mary $10,000 to perform surgery on a friend of hers named Ruby Real Girl, the one that wishes to be transformed into a human doll, by having her nipples and her labia removed, because she believes that those are things that deem her as a sexual object. Because she doesn't want to be seen as a sexual object, because dolls aren't really looked at as sexual objects. But then I'm like, wait a second, you ever heard of something called a sex doll? Or these guys who actually literally get these dolls that are built and made to look somewhat anatomically correct, and they can fuck it too, and it's really disturbing and weird. This is real stuff. There's these dolls that are like real dolls, I think is what they're called, and they're made to be anatomically correct, and you can stick your dick in it, and it's apparently really popular with some people who actually look at them as their actual girlfriend. In fact, one guy actually married one. Real. I'm not fucking around. I'm not making it up. It's a real thing. It's actually happened. It was on a TLC reality show called God. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I should know the name of it. It's something obsession. It's about these people were real. My Strange Obsession, I think, is what it's called, or something. And these people are obsessed with some really weird shit. So anyway, so yeah, she has the surgery done. Beatrice offers her an extra $2,000 for just showing up at this veterinary clinic after hours, because her niece Tessa is a receptionist there. So, although the unusualness of this request bothers Mary, she's desperate for money. She's in debt up to her knees, with all these student loans and other stuff. She had her phone turned off recently because, she wasn't able to pay the bill. Um, and she needs the money. So she does the surgery. And that's what makes her vomit. She vomits after she finishes it. And during her residency, because then it flash forwards, this film it takes place in a pretty long period of time, I think. So then she gets a residency at the hospital. So before, she was just taking classes at this college with the doctor who her former teacher, Dr. Alan Grant, who, I have to admit, it was kind of jarring when you first see the scene where she's in the class and her phone goes off and he flips out and he's like, "What the fuck, Mary?" It's like, you're a professor. Like, this is a very professor-like behavior, Dr. Alan Grant. What the fuck, Mary? He's all like, don't fuck up in my class. You fuck up one more time and you're gone. And it's just like, shit, man. This professor doesn't fuck around. So she ends up getting invited to a party with several of these surgeons at her hospital. But before that, there was some criticism I've seen people have for this movie, and that where they say it seems like her change in her personality after the first 40 minutes is just abrupt, and it doesn't really make much sense. And I respectfully disagree, because I think that Mary was always a sociopath. She was not really normal. She wasn't really not what we would call normal, what I would call normal. She was definitely, let's just say, she had some issues. Her only real friend was her Nana, and she was struggling for money, and so then she got involved in this underground surgery and body mod thing, and that's pretty fucked up and weird. So that fucked with her head. But I think there's very subtle, but on it still very I'm trying to think of the right word. Very subtle, but still very noticeable sequences in the film that showed you that her progression from struggling surgeon who's kind of quirky to sadistic sociopath. In particular, there's a scene where she's at the hospital and she's asked by her doctor, her supervisor, to go on and tell this family who's waiting in the waiting room, to tell them that their father and, of course, the husband of the wife who's waiting there has had a heart attack. She does that, and does it in a cold, calculated, completely emotionless manner. Then the doctor asks her to go in and tell them, that the family, that their father, the husband, is dead. And she does it in the same way. Cold, completely just calculated, absolutely no emotion, no remorse whatsoever. Very robotic. And that's typical of sociopaths. They don't really emote like we do. They don't show much empathy. And so that was a sign of things to come. Well, but I never really thought she was an out and out sociopath. She was just a sociopath on the inside, just waiting to break out. Well, all it took was a very tragic event in her life for this to happen. She goes to this party with these surgeons. She gets drugged, and she gets raped by her former teacher, Dr. Alan Grant. Yeah, he not only doesn't fuck. I guess he does fuck around. He just doesn't. He doesn't fuck around with his students. Well, he does fuck around with his students. So when I said he doesn't fuck around, it's kind of not true because he does fuck around in the worst possible way. So then it becomes kind of a rape revenge movie, but not really. It's kind of there. That's a subplot. But really it just becomes the whole rest of the film is this tragic story of Mary who just keeps going down further and further into the rabbit hole after this traumatic event in her life when she gets raped. So she returns to the strip club afterwards and hires their enforcers to kidnap Grant. And she just fucks him up. She performs a series of involuntary body modifications on him, including splitting his tongue, altering his genitals, amputating his limbs, suturing his mouth and his eyes closed. She drops out of medical school, of course. I could see why you would, because the people you're having residency with were pretty much raped you. She then goes into consensual body modification surgery full time. And that's what's so tragic about this, is that she's doing so good for a lot of people. Some people really, they do this body mod stuff because it makes them feel whole. It makes them feel like they're themselves. It makes them feel good. And, she can make money off of that and so on. But she's also keeping this one guy, the guy who raped her, alive, with an IV in some warehouse somewhere, and just keeping coming back and doing more fucked up surgeries on him because she used him as a test subject, so to speak, for her surgeries. But this is a side of her people don't really see. So Mary becomes a renowned surgeon of great skill who's willing to perform any surgery desired. The most prominent of her new clients are a pair of twins from Berlin who want to have their left arms exchanged and horns implanted in their foreheads. And there's a certain scene where the surgery scene where she's doing the surgery on them. I like the choice of music in this scene. And also, the outfit that she's wearing reminds me totally of Dead Ringers by David Cronenberg. It's the same shade of red that Jeremy Irons' characters were wearing, in their surgery scenes. So, she does that. She's keeping Dr. Grant as a prisoner. She gets discovered by a security guard while tormenting the doctor, and she kills the guard rather brutally to protect herself. A police detective starts investigating her. This guy is played by John Emmett Tracy, and suspecting that she might be involved in the doctor's disappearance. Beatrice vanishes, but then later Mary receives a phone call from her. She's been brutally stabbed and beaten, and she reveals that Ruby's husband has been angered by her transformation and seeking revenge against Mary. And this is where the film kind of starts to fall apart for me, because it seems rather rushed. It's like the writers were like, Jen and Sylvia Soska, they were like, well, we need to end the movie here. We need to end the movie. We are having a hard time figuring out what the ending is, but we don't have much time. We need to get this movie made. Fuck it. Let's just put it whatever we can think of on the page here. And it just felt very, very rushed, and it hurt the film a little bit for me. Because I didn't really get didn't really come across to me that this guy was the husband of Ruby Real Girl, was offended by her decision to look like a human doll, because the scene that shows that, when she strips down and shows him her new her new self, it looks to me like he's turned on. The look on his face to me didn't look like he was disgusted. The look on his face looked like he was turned on, like he liked it. And some people are into that. But no, I guess he didn't like it, because he's the one who pretty much killed his wife and then beat up Beatrice, and so he could get the location the address of Mary, her place, and so he peers out of the darkness and stabs her. Mary kills him, but she dies from internal bleeding after trying to suture herself up. It's very tragic, a very striking imagery here. She's wearing a white dress. She's covered in blood. She's dragging herself across the floor into her surgery room, which is behind this sliding door, and she's trying to suture herself up while she's dying, trying to do something like that, which kind of shows, trying to prove to the world how great of a surgeon she is. And she lost too much blood, so it's all for naught. Because it looks like she does manage to suture herself up, but she's just lost too much blood, so then she's dead. The detective guy comes in, finds all this other stuff. They find the evidence of the Dr. Alan Grant, who the picture evidence of things like that, who they've been looking for, and they know he's dead. Which is something that some critics were like, is he dead? We don't know what happened to him. There's a line of dialogue that clearly says two people died, and one of them is Dr. Alan Grant. And it would make sense. His IV got broken when the security guard came in and tried to save him. And Mary killed him. So, yeah, so it's a pretty brutal movie. It's a brutal, intense, unflinching, tragic movie. It really is. It's a tragic film. It's not really your traditional horror film. That's why I say it's more of like Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer meets Audition. It's more of a drama. It's a drama with horror and thriller elements. And yeah, I didn't really feel that Mary's transformation was something that was uh, uh, stilted or forced, or didn't really feel like it was natural. Because honestly, I felt she was that Mary, the Bloody Mary, was always inside of her. It just took the tragic situation when she was raped in order to bring that out to the forefront. And then her line of work just is kind of depraved stuff, so that just kind of fed into her growing sadistic side of herself. And it just it was really sad to see somebody who was so promising and so beautiful to just completely waste her life by just just letting the dark side of her take over. And yeah, ultimately it killed her. And so yeah, and there's other criticisms some people have, and I'm only bringing this stuff up because I just felt like some of the criticisms I've seen for this were kind of, I don't know, I just didn't really agree with them. So I wanted to address them in this review, where they said things like, oh, Mary all of a sudden has feelings for the bar owner. I'm like, no, I never got that impression. The bar owner has feelings for her, and the bar owner wants to be with her. In fact, he hallucinates seeing her on stage stripping in a very, very provocative, I'm gonna say bonerific scene. It definitely is. And it's fuck, man. Probably that probably is a scene where Kathartine Isabelle is at her hottest. And then he hallucinates again that she's giving him a massage and then stabs him. No, I never got the impression that she had the hots for him or had fallen in love with him. Because the last little bit of dialogue they have with each other, the bar owner guys, let's go to LA, let's leave, let's get out of here, let's do a change of pace, let's drive down to LA. And she's like, why drive? We can fly. And he's like, do you think we need to change the pace? He's like, maybe. And she kind of basically buffs him off and then leaves. So I didn't buy that she fell for the guy. I didn't really see it that way. And I know it is a depressing ending, but how else do you think it was going to end? This is a tragic story. This is a woman who fell way, way down into the rabbit hole and could not get out. The only way out was death. And she was what? I'm just glad it didn't end with some cliched shit where the cop finds her, she gets shot or something. At least she gets stabbed by some guy who I didn't see coming, but at the same time, it just felt like I got blindsided in the face with not with like a pole, like a metal pole, just smacked me right in the face with a metal pole with a socket wrench. or pipe wrench. You know, like in Clue. Did it? We killed her with the pipe wrench in the study. Bam! Damn it, Colonel Mustard. So yeah, just got smacked in the face, and I'm like, what the hell? Where did this come from? Just abrupt. It was rushed. I think it would have been better if the ending involved Mary. She's the direct cause of her own demise. Instead of some random Deus Ex Machina thing where this guy just, I don't like what you did to my wife. You die, bitch. It was just rushed. Rushed is the perfect way to describe it. But anyway, don't know what else to say about American Mary. I mean, that's pretty much what I have to say about the film. I liked it, despite the fact that the ending was rushed, and I think it could have been done better. I still think there was a lot of elements in this that worked really well. There was enough positives here that they outweighed the negatives, and yeah, I don't know what to say about the film. It's a rate out of 5 stars. I would give the movie 4 out of 5. Yeah, I really liked it that much. I would say it's a new gem for me, and I would definitely love to pick this up sometime and add it to my collection. So thank you, Darren, for recommending it to me, and I will see you guys later, as always. So yeah, see ya. Thanks for watching.